remember how you know it, but you know it. Just that feeling of familiarity, like you've seen the face before.
Yes.
That feeling decreases the more you talk about it consciously. So many processes work better when we don't think about them so much. It's not like they don't need some training too, but the real important message is we've put so much strength into the weight of the conscious mind. And yet we're finding now that the conscious mind, that whole system, while it's very strong in some areas, it's very weak in others. It's just limited at what it can do.
Could we say that the conscious mind guards the gate of all the rest of the knowing?
It guards the gate of our ecosystems. That's the thing.
Okay.
It definitely guards the gate. But
is it the dragon?
Well,
in a sense?
It does. It's a very powerful thing, but if it's used in the wrong way, it's like taking a car on a very fine tundra. You're trampling all the little plants under there, and those things need to exist there too. So it's a very powerful tool, but it needs to be used in the right way. We put so much weight in it, in Western civilization, that we have lost sight of the more subtle processes.
Okay, now, last question about this. In your professional and personal experience of living life and training people in remote viewing and being a remote viewer, can you assert at this time that the subconscious is the knower?
We don't know that yet.
Okay.
We really don't know who the knower is.
Okay.
That is the really big question. And you've heard a lot of other people talking about this.
I don't know that I have, but certainly it's an interesting question.
Who is the perceiver? And that is really the big question. I mean, who's having conversations right here with each other? Who's doing this? You would think that it's this thing that you call you, right?
I think it's higher intelligence actually directing this.
Right. I mean, we don't know that this isn't the same person having a conversation with herself, himself at the same time. That from one point of view seems like you're in your state and I'm in mine.
Yes.
At a distance. And yet we don't really know because, and there's a lot of physiological experiments that have shown that we're not really sure where you make decisions either. It's not clear what part of the brain makes decisions, if the brain is making it at all.
The neuromarketers say that the decisions are made in the ancient brain, the animal brain. That's very ancient. Do you agree with that?
It's not true.
Okay.
It's not made in the brain. This is the most amazing thing, Kim.
Fabulous.
I just read this article 2 days ago. They found that your body affects your decisions and your thinking. That if you engage people in like rolling marbles upward on a table,
yes,
and you look at their ability to recall positive stories and metaphors, they can do the positive stories faster than people rolling the marbles downward on a table. Those people are able to remember stories that have a downward theme and a negative emotional theme faster than positive stories. It's called embodied cognition.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. I mean, it's turning the whole thing upside down. There's been a big debate in cognitive science whether thinking is something that happens in your brain or whether you have other people that argue that thinking is something that happens outside your body and your brain is just accessing it, right?
That sounds more correct, actually,
yeah,
what you just
and
said.
then there's the idea that your body, thinking's happening in your whole body. You've heard, the whole mind-body movement.
Yeah.
I think it started with Candace Pert and many other people. The idea that your body thinks and it's not just your brain. We've been biased towards this idea that the thinking happens in the neuronal structure in your brain. And yet we know from the work of Michael Gershon in his book, The Second Brain, I believe that there are more neurons in your intestinal digestive system.
It's called the gut brain, right?
Yeah. So where does the thinking happen? It's just, our own bias from our own upbringing, our civilization. It's not to its own fault, but we've been limited in how we think. The thinking happens in the whole body. And these studies show that the way you're holding yourself, left-handed people see things on the left differently than right-handed people emotionally, that the thinking happens with the whole body. And then there's this idea that thinking happens outside your body and you're just kind of like a radio receiver for it, that it's happening in like a higher mind that we can't see. And that we're just each tuned to a frequency, in a sense, that receives that information, transmits it. But we know we do have these bodies. So the bodies sort of modulate the thinking process too. Anyway, the whole point of this is it's not just something that happens in the brain. We've been too brain-centric. To make our discussion a little bigger, we were talking about the subconscious a few minutes ago.
Yes.
These processes happen throughout our body, but, okay, I don't want to make this too complicated, but what is our body? I mean, this is why I wrote Planetary Intelligence. Your body is the whole system you live in, including your planet and everything else like that, right?
Yes.
Because you think, well, my body ends right here at the edge of my skin, right? But it doesn't, because you can't live for a couple minutes without oxygen, and you're not making any of that stuff. Who's making that? All the green guys around, So where does your body begin and where does it end? And so if you're thinking with your body, what's your body? Well, your body is this whole, everything you see, it's all of you. It's just this illusion of continuity that makes it seem placed in our, in the space of our bodies over the span of a lifetime. What this all seems to show is that we're just not what we thought we were. And that's why we have all these resonant abilities, remote viewing, all these other things. We're just starting to touch the tip of the iceberg. It's not that it's amazing we have these abilities. It's just that, yeah, sure, we have these abilities because we are much bigger than we thought we were, our sense of who we are. And that's the real and fascinating thing about it. One of the fascinating things about the whole thing.
I want to move to your naming time, temporal time rhythms, as one of the great obstructors of natural rhythms and temporal time obstructing the well-being of people around the world. You spend quite a bit of time on pages laying out this idea with different analogies and examples. You call it, I guess, distractions of the clock. How the clock and our preoccupation with machine time has, you didn't say ruined, but diminished the quality of life on Earth tremendously.
Yeah, it's such a fascinating topic in itself, isn't it? We all feel time pressure now.
It really has reduced the quality of life, and I guess you call it temporal imperialism.
Yeah, it's really changed, even in the course of 10 years, how much we're expected to do now every day. I mean, to fit it all in, because there's so much more inputs, information, if you'd like to call that, data, whatever you would like to call all the stuff we're engaged in all the time. Email and Twitter and social networking and all these other things that is real. It's not, you can't just push it away. It's really part of our lives now for many of us, and the online world and so forth. But the downside of that is our bodies are designed the way as hunter-gatherers, right, from hundreds of thousands of years ago.
Right.
And bodies are still working on this diurnal cycle of day and night. Bodies need to sleep, right?
Right.
They've had cases in Korea of kids playing video games nonstop for 3 or 4 days and then just falling over dead. And they passed a law in Korea making it illegal to play video games for more than a certain amount of time without taking a break. So this is what we're all up against, in a sense, is this technological world which is always on versus our own biological needs. I mean, that you can go for longer without food than you can without sleep.
Yes.
Yeah, so scientists are still trying to decide out why we need sleep. Actually, no one's totally sure. There's a lot of theories. But we're built a certain way, and that doesn't change in 10 years just because we have the internet now everywhere and our phones and everything. Our bodies are still like hunter-gatherers, and the way we perceive and the fight or flight response, the way we react to stress. And so anyway, there are these different temporal systems, and if we don't get them to work cooperatively together, we'll have a lot of stress. Our bodies need time. The work we were talking about a few minutes ago by Guy Claxton, also that book by Malcolm Gladwell, Blink, he talked about this also a lot, the writer for The New Yorker. It's another book about the subconscious, about what Malcolm Gladwell said in there, which relates to this, and Guy Claxton and others have all found, is to make good decisions, you need what Gladwell calls white space. It's space around the decision-making process. And Gladwell cites many examples of cases of police mistakes or brutality when real mistakes were committed because things just started going too fast, right? And all of a sudden, guns come out, shots are fired, and once the shots are fired, lots of shots get fired because it's just an autonomic reaction. And so Gladwell talks about white space. It's a situation we're all sort of in a sense that when things happen too fast, we can show that your judgment declines. And just a real interesting example. Apparently, according to Gladwell, a lot of communities